Chinese saying goes, 独木不成林, which means a single tree cannot make a forest. How can Global South countries support each other so that we can be stronger as a critical mass in realizing a multipolar world? Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, welcome to the Global South Think Tanks Forum, brought to you by the International Department of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China and China Media Group. It is organized by CGTN, China Global Television Network. Peace, development, and security jointly build a prosperous world with a shared future. This is our theme today. Our forum today will address the most pressing and common issues facing us all, and it will culminate with a grand unveiling of an initiative on Global South think tanks cooperation. This will be a special platform for all of us to pool our expertise, knowledge, and resources on how to build a more equal, prosperous, and just world for all. We are pleased to be joined on site by about 90 journalists from around the world, mostly Global South countries. A warm round of applause to all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, please let's hear a keynote speech by Liu Jianchao, Minister of the International Department of the CPC Central Committee.
尊敬的各位嘉宾，各位全球南方国家智库代表，女士们、先生们、朋友们，很高兴与各位共聚荧屏。当前，随着世界百年变局加速演进，全球南方成长壮大，在推动国际秩序变革中发挥着重要的建设性作用。面对经济全球化遭遇逆流，全球南方勇立潮头，迎难而上，反对搞筑墙设垒、脱钩断链，坚持开放包容，倡导和维护经济全球化，以前所未有的广度、深度和力度，携手推动可持续发展，努力融入全球经济发展进程，成为推动普惠包容的新型全球化的重要动力。面对世界多极化曲折发展，全球南方反对搞二元划分、阵营对立，坚持大小国家一律平等，在多边舞台加强协调配合，展现出团结合作、联合自强的强大声势，推动国际力量对比朝着更加平衡的方向发展，成为推动平等有序的世界多极化的有力支撑。面对不公正、不合理的国际秩序，全球南方反对霸权主义和强权政治，坚持和平共处五项原则，坚持战略自主，坚守自身立场，坚决维护全球南方正当权益，积极采取共同行动，践行真正的多边主义，以更加主动的姿态参与国际事务，成为推动国际关系民主化的积极力量。全球南方不断发展壮大，是占世界大多数的南方国家民心所向，是历史发展的潮流所趋，是百年变局的希望所在。习近平主席指出，站在新的历史起点上，全球南方应当以更加开放包容的姿态携手共进，走在推动构建人类命运共同体的前列。展望未来，我们要坚持守望相助，共同推动更加包容的全球发展，坚持对话沟通，共同应对全球性挑战，坚持团结协作，共同维护世界和平稳定，坚持互学互鉴，共同拓展人类文明进步之路，为世界贡献更多的稳定性和正能量。中国身属南方，始终与南方国家同呼吸、共命运，是南南合作的积极倡导者和重要参与者。中国将始终同南方国家紧密团结在一起，一同展现全球南方担当作为，推动落实全球发展倡议、全球安全倡议、全球文明倡议，为推动构建人类命运共同体汇聚更大的全球南方力量。谢谢大家。
Many thanks to Mr. Liu for these inspiring words. Next, let's hear the keynote speech by Shen Haixiong, Vice Minister of the Publicity Department of the CPC Central Committee and President of China Media Group.
尊敬的各位嘉宾，各位南方国家智库代表，朋友们，今天我们跨越山海，相聚在荧屏，交流思想，交换高见，共商全球南方国家合作发展大计，携手推动全球南方在全球治理体系中发出更响亮的声音。全球南方是新兴国家和发展中国家集合体，在人类发展的历史长河中，全球南方国家有着追求民族独立的相似历程，有着追求自主发展道路的共同底色，有着追求公平、公正国际秩序的一致诉求。今天，全球南方正在崛起，正成为全球治理新秩序的重要变革力量。习近平主席指出，中国始终是全球南方的一员，永远属于发展中国家。在新中国75年的发展历程中，中国和广大发展中国家建立了跨越时空的深厚情谊。从提出贡献“一带一路”到发出全球3大倡议，从坚定倡导世界多极化、国际关系民主化，到始终践行构建人类命运共同体理念，中国始终为全球南方鼓与呼，积极为全球南方的发展探索道路，努力为完善全球治理贡献智慧力量。大道不孤，德必有邻。今天，全球南方正携手共进，共谋发展，在倡导和平安全、维护公平正义的道路上，努力发出更加响亮的声音。而智库在这样的进程中，正发挥着无可替代的作用。作为思想智慧汇聚的熔炉，智库既为各国发展献计献策，成为决策的参谋部和推动者，也在社会发展中起到教育公众、汇聚人才的作用，成为新思想和新观点的传播者，更是在国际交流和学术交往中成为互学互鉴的桥头堡和参与者。在2024年金砖国家领导人峰会召开之际，我们以与会代表共同签署并发布《全球南方国家智库携手共建命运与共的繁荣世界》倡议，就是要充分发挥全球南方智库的作用，同向同行，形成合力，推动南方国家在追求人类发展繁荣和公平公正的道路上走得更快，走得更远。作为当今世界体量规模最大、业务形态最多、覆盖范围最广的综合性国际传媒航母，中国中央广播电总台始终致力于推动文明交流，促进互利合作。我们将积极架设中国与全球南方国家间交流对话、互学互鉴的桥梁和纽带，也将积极为全球南方智库推动合作共赢、促进公平正义的声音提供传播平台。我们愿与全球南方智库携手，为共建人类命运共同体、推动世界走向和平、安全、繁荣、进步的美好未来贡献更大的力量。谢谢大家。
Many thanks to Mr. Shen Haixiong. Also, as an expression of support, we have received video messages from former senior government officials from over 10 countries. Because of time constraints, we are only going to show you a compilation of the highlights. Please watch.
So there is a huge difference between the aggressiveness and the militarism of the West. The United States has basically been involved in every war in the world for the last decades, and the peacefulness of the global South, where the major powers are very peaceful.
This forum provides an inviolable opportunity for think tanks across the global South to come together and forge a broad consensus on key issues, enhancing development cooperation, promoting fairness and justice, and collaboratively building a prosperous future.
It's my privilege to send greetings to the forum where think tanks around the world, especially from the Global South country, will share their ideas to brainstorm what to do next in order to bring our world to a more prosperous future.
ប្រទេសចិនគឺជាឆ្នាំងបាយរបស់ពិភពលោកពីព្រោះថានៅពេលដែលមានបាយគឺប្រជាជនមនុស្សជាតិអាចរស់រានមានជីវិតបាន
Y ante esta situación, desde el sur global tenemos otras formas de podernos apoyar. No solamente es con un pensamiento unilateral, monocultural, sino que es un pensamiento de complementariedad, de solidaridad.
ดังที่สุภาษิตเราได้กล่าวไว้ว่าความสามัคคีเป็นบ่อเกิดแห่งความสำเร็จ
เราต้องเผชิญกับความท้าทายมากมาย แต่ตราบใดที่เราร่วมมือกันและรับมือไปด้วยกัน เราก็จะสามารถมีอนาคตที่ดีกว่าได้อย่างแน่นอน
The progressive forces of the world should do their best to strengthen cooperation within Global South, and we consider that as a responsibility entrusted on us by the history.
Estos espacios son esenciales para generar conocimientos, experiencias y soluciones innovadoras a los desafíos que enfrentamos en la educación, empoderamiento de la mujer y la igualdad de oportunidades.
El Foro del Sur Global es una oportunidad para nuestras naciones de nuestra región para poder intercambiar ideas en este gran laboratorio de ideas.
Much appreciation to these former senior government officials for their encouraging and inspiring words. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you our impressive lineup of guests today. They are, from my immediate left, Grzegorz Kolodko, Director of TIGER, or Transformation, Integration and Globalization Economic Research at Kosminski University in Warsaw, Poland. He was former Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance of Poland. Welcome, sir. Professor Wang Dong, Executive Director of the Institute for Global Cooperation and Understanding at Peking University. Larissa Warholt, co-founder, Institute of Government Relations, also Senior Fellow of the Brazilian Center for International Relations. Ana Rosario Malindog Wee, Vice President of Asian Century Philippines Strategic Studies Institute. Wow, I see you're very popular here. Yoro Diallo, Executive Director of the Center for Francophone Studies and Director of African Museum of Zhejiang Normal University. And last but not least, Wang Wen, Dean of Chongyang Institute for Financial Studies at Renmin University of China. We are also delighted, as I promised, to have contributions from thought leaders representing some 40 think tanks from around the world. We'll be hearing their insights in just a moment in between the two parts of the discussion. So I can't wait. I'm sure neither can you. Let's get straight to the topic. Wang Wen, I'm going to start with you. Mr. Shen Haixiong just said in the video that Global South have three similarities. First, at least, first of all, we have a similar journey in our pursuit of national independence. We have a common goal of seeking our own development path and our united call for a fair and just international order. But what is the common challenge we are faced with today?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me. Actually, I totally agree with Mr. Shen Haixiong's speech. We have so many similarities, but the problem is now we also have very many similar challenges from the global. Actually, I think, as we all know, that nowadays the world condition we are facing the worst challenges and conditions seeing the end of the World War II, the worst condition. Why I talk about that? Because there are a lot of similar challenges. First is wars. There are so many wars happened in the world nowadays. Second challenge, the similar challenge is that the economic stagnation. As we all know that the last 5 years, the economic growth the economic growth of the international economy was only 2% to 2.3%, the lowest economic growth since the end of the World War II. I think that means that a lot of global South countries, the economic is not very good. Even China. China now, of course, we face the very huge pressure of economic growth. The third challenge, of course, we all know the climate change, the virus. So I think we have to face the similar challenge and united solve it gradually. Yeah.
Okay. Let me jump to this side of the stage, maybe, Mr. Kolodko, and seek your opinion on this issue. Because people say it's the worst of the time, it's the best of the time. There's no best moment in history, there's no worst moment in history. For the Global South, are there anything to celebrate at this moment? Something to work upon, to build upon?
We still have the problem with understanding what the Global South implies. Before the end of the First Cold War, because now we are unfortunately engaged in the Second Cold War, which was initiated by the United States, mostly against the rising power of China. We have tectonic geopolitical changes. So Global South is a geopolitical concept. It's strange, but most of the people of so-called Global South are living in the northern part of the globe. You have countries which are definitely west, like Cuba, which once upon a time was so-called east, and now without moving anywhere became the south. So my understanding of Global South, it is first of all that this is not the west. This is not the rich west with the hegemonic position of United States, which is weakening, and they cannot accept it, and this is one of the reasons of the international economic and political tensions. And my second thought is that we changed the approach. Once upon a time, you may remember, some of you are too young, but your parents, yes, you are too young, but you know, your parents definitely remember that starting from China, it was so-called third world.
Right.
If there was the third world, that's supposed to be somewhere the first and the second. Who was the first? The first was the rich West, which is still the rich West led by the United States. Who was the second? Second was so-called East, so-called communist or socialist countries of Eastern Europe, former Soviet Union, all the way through Eastern Asia, including Vietnam, China, Mongolia, and so on. And then we learned that there are emerging markets. It's a very neoliberal approach, which implies that the business opportunity to make the profits, sometime by unfair exchange, if not exploitation, has emerged. So how long one can be emerging from non-market status to the piece of the market, of the global market, because globalization is an irreversible process. And now we are, even today, we heard just a minute ago, developing emerging market and developing countries. Myself being, you know, for 35 years professor of economics, I don't know what is the difference between so-called developing and emerging markets. This is the language of World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, and I advise you to use this term. In my writing, I'm talking about emancipating economies, emancipating societies. We want to be understood, we want to be respected, and we want to play the economic and political game on the same, not identical, but fair, competitive footing. We want simply to emancipate, to develop, and this is so-called Global South, which is very diversified within. It is not a monolith. There are plenty of contradictions within Global South, but the aim, sustainable, durable, peaceful development, it is the glue of this Global South. But remember, emancipating economy, this is the key word.
Anna, let me come to you. And can you explain why you're so popular with so many of the participants?
They're good friends of mine.
No, but I really appreciate your presence here, and you have been very outspoken against your own government policy in terms of some of the very touchy issues on my show. I appreciate that very much. Some people are saying, look, this is not an organization. You don't have your charter. You don't have a normative standard. You don't have your same value, you know, and the development level is very different. Is that a curse or blessing for the Global South?
I think,
and you may have even different opinions on sensitive issues, right?
Yeah. I think that's the beauty of the Global South, or what you call the global majority, because you know it has diversity, and in diversity there's a lot of opportunity. If you look at the Global South, I just want to address also some of your questions earlier. If you look at the Global South, it's very diverse, so it means there's a lot of learnings that each of us can, because we're part of the Global South. The Philippines is still part of the Global South. I mean, we have a lot of things to learn from each other. We have a lot of exchanges. In that sense, diversity is very important. But what I think is something that the Global South or the Global South countries should celebrate is, among this diversity, even despite this diversity, which is very multiracial countries, you can see that there's such a thing as a united, unifying force among the Global South countries. First is we have the shared history of colonization. And now Global South countries are asserting themselves to have this decolonization and have to redefine itself as an independent states or countries that can define its own future. And I think this is very common among Global South countries, by which, you know, each of us are trying to push at this moment, and this is something that we have to celebrate. Another point of convergence, despite the diversity in Global South, I think is the common challenges that you have asked earlier. Like, for example, one of that would be poverty elevation, development challenges in different countries in the Global South, and what you call the non-traditional challenges that would include climate change, how you define yourself as a country amidst the geopolitical issues that many of the Global Souths want to be a non-aligned within the non-aligned movement. So these are things that binds the Global South countries despite the diversity, and may it be culturally, may it be politically speaking, because if you look at the Global South countries, in terms of politics, in terms of political institutions, very diverse as well. But that is the beauty, you know. We don't need to be uniform in every possible way. We can appreciate the differences that we have. And I think that's I think the beauty of the Global South. Unlike the West, the Global North, it seems there some kind of, you know, uniformity, and it seems like they want everyone to be a mirror image of themselves. And I don't think that's fair and that's good. You know, we have to celebrate diversity, but, you know, we have to be united in resolving the challenges that we're facing as the global majority.
I see. Larissa, let me come to you. China and Brazil have a very close and closer cooperation relationship at this moment, thanks to people like you who are facilitating. Has development, the term of development, taken on a different connotation when we enter into the new era, when we have new technology, which are developed in Global South countries, being shared with other Global South countries? What is the dynamic looking like at this moment?
Thank you for your question. Brazil and China have a relation of 50 years. This year we celebrate 50 years of diplomatic relations, and that says a lot about the type of relationship that we have been having throughout the years. It has changed, it has improved, and one example talking about South-South cooperation and developing countries cooperation is that Brazil and China have a program in place, a space program called CBERS, that dates from the 80s. So if now we're talking about a relationship between Brazil and China that is based on very strong terms on trade and foreign direct investment, we can also say that it started decades ago with also a view to technological exchange and learning from each other. So at this point in time, China is a major investor into the Brazilian economy. China is Brazil's largest trading partner since 2009. Brazil is the fourth largest destination of Chinese direct investment in the world, and most of these investments have been directed to the energy sector, which is also a reflection of some of the challenges that we face nowadays related to climate change and energy and ecological transition. I would like to highlight the fact that most of the Chinese investments in Brazil have been directed to the energy sector, and more or less 50% of it to the clean energy sector. So because of the nature of Brazil's energy mix, we're talking about investments in hydro, wind, and solar that are very important, not only for the energy transition that we have been trying to develop until now, but also the ecological transition as a whole for the years to come. So I think development in this case means economic development for the people involved, so it's income generation, job creation, and it's also a joint effort looking ahead in terms of the ecological transition that we will all have to face.
Basically a higher level, a new way of development.
Very sophisticated. Yes.
Yeah, very sophisticated. Mr. Wang Wen, let me ask this tricky question to you. I think it's tricky because in Chinese we say 名不正言不顺. If you don't have the right name, you can't talk, you don't have the narrative. We are hearing Global East,
yes,
right? On top of Global South.
Yes.
And mostly from Western pundits. Why?
Yeah, actually, first I have to say that so-called Global East is a very, very bad definition. And so-called Global East refer to China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, something like that. And then I think it's like to use ideology into the international competition, divide the global south. I think this is very, very it's like the conspiracy activities of the offshore balance strategy. Global south countries have to sit together like today and trust each other and keep the sustainable development and the social stability. Yeah. Then we can keep the rise of the global south continually. So this is my opinion. Yeah.
Just quickly, I think when you talk about the global East, they want to push for the global East, I think it's the usual divide and conquer strategy of the West, that they want to have that, the global South to be divided and to have that probably confrontation and arguments and all of that. But I don't think that should be the case. Because the Global South is very much defined. It's defined by its historical. If you look at the Global South, it has so many commonalities, and even China is still in the Global South. Because if you look at China's development, it's not yet as, the whole China is developed. There are other areas in China that's still developing. Absolutely. And they're trying to, that's why your policy is to have that even development. You have this saying that some areas in China should not be left behind, precisely because the development is uneven. And it's still a characteristic of Global South countries. And we have similar kind of experience when you talk about colonizational experience. We have that, and we still have facing the same kind of issues like poverty, climate change, sustainable development, and all of these things. And I think it makes China, Brazil, South Africa, and even India could consider to be part of this Global South. That's why Global East is a little bit uncomfortable for people like me who's from the Global South. It's like
they're talking about the Global East. I guess they're talking about one country when they're talking about Global East. Anyway, I know we can go on and on, but let's take a real short break. But don't go away, because we're just going to show a short piece of video, as I promised, inputs from think tanks, leaders from around the world. Just a couple of minutes. Let's watch.
Em vez de depender das antigas potências do hemisfério norte, os países do sul global agora estão formando alianças entre si, compartilhando soluções que são adaptadas às suas realidades e promovendo crescimento mais inclusivo e sustentável.
Development is the pathway to prosperity. But development in our context is not merely economic growth. It is about ensuring that every person, every community has the opportunity to thrive.
Le thème qui concerne la paix, la sécurité et le développement est vraiment un thème important, dans la mesure qu'on a besoin de paix. La paix est synonyme de prospérité. Et pour avoir la prospérité, on a besoin du travail. Le travail qui est synonyme de développement. Le développement est essentiel.
In this situation, people around the world who are committed to peace and global unity have a duty to come together to stand on the side of the right and isolate those in the wrong.
Today, we are assembled here to make a united call for a fair and just international order and to reiterate the vow that Global South has taken to jointly build a prosperous world without letting anybody out of it.
The world's policy makers need to come together to work together on these common objectives and goals which we have, which are not just shared by some nations, but all nations, all peoples of the world, all civilizations of the world, and all the cultures of the world.
Para obtener la seguridad es necesario satisfacer las necesidades de las personas y en principio esto se realiza a través de una seguridad económica, ya que reduciendo la pobreza no habrá motivo para delinquir por este motivo. Cuando tenemos nosotros seguridad alimentaria, las personas han satisfecho sus necesidades de alimento y esto también no justificaría para poder realizar alguna acción negativa contra su Estado.
We are happy you are providing a platform for the Global South think tanks to amplify our voices in promoting this win-win cooperation and advocating fairness and justice and to bring fairness and justice to the world.
Именно странам глобального юга отведено играть главнейшую роль в формировании вот такого многополярного порядка.
C'est ensemble qu'on peut se développer. Et l'idéal pour les pays du Sud, c'est d'être solidaire. Lorsqu'un pays a des problèmes, il faut impérativement lui venir en aide. Et c'est ensemble, c'est comme ça qu'on pourra se développer.
หากร่วมแบ่งปันส่งเสริมความร่วมมือที่เน้นความเสมอภาคเน้นการเรียนรู้ซึ่งกันและกันเชื่อว่าประชาคมโลกแห่งความสุขของมนุษยชาติที่เต็มไปด้วยความสันติมั่นคงเจริญรุ่งเรืองและก้าวหน้าต้องเกิดขึ้นอย่างแน่นอน
In terms of security, Professor Kolodko, let me start with you. What can Global South countries do together to enhance security, whether it is, food security, energy security, or other senses of security? One practical advice?
There is no practical advice because Global South does not exist. It's an ideological concept. And Global South, or so-called Global South, as we heard from the panelists, not from the video, is full of contradictions. It's a heterogeneous feature with plenty of conflicting interests and of conflicting ideas. And the only common platform for so-called Global South, it is that most, but not all, of countries which belong to the so-called Global South, they do not accept former colonial powers' leadership, like Britain or France or American hegemony, but it does not imply that they will, and definitely they are not doing yet, accept the China's leadership. So the question is how the so-called Global South will evolve. Some time ago, we heard that is the plane of the words, the West and the rest. Yes, Global South is not the West, as I said before. This is the rest. But not everybody is Global West, is Global South. Jordan, Saudi Arabia, definitely not. So the countries, they have different ideas, and the people over there, and they have different interests. And from this perspective, of course, it is most important to have peaceful solutions as a ground, as a starting point for catching up, for social and economic development. And here, yes, countries of so-called Global South can learn a lot from China to invest in human capital, to invest in infrastructure, to support technology, but do not be naive. most of the military conflict in contemporary world are not in so-called West, but in so-called global South. The question is why? Just talking about peace is not enough. We have to discuss and to make a diagnosis what is the real cause of the conflicts within the global South.
You have made very interesting points. I don't want it to be watered down too much. Any response? Yes, Mr.
I would like just to say that when we talk about security, the question is, what is the security? What is the insecurity? Where are the countries concerned by security question, by security problems? When we take example of Democratic Republic of Congo, this is the richest country in the world. They have everything in terms of mind, in terms of nature, in terms of water, everything. But this country is still poor. And at the same time, we have in the Sahel region, for example, I'm from Mali, or West Africa, Sahel regions, quite people, quite with an historical, I can say, background, former big civilization. The contribution of the empire of Mali in the history marked all the world from Africa to Eastern region. But why instability in those countries? The people who came to create the situation in those countries are not born there. But they come and they create a problem. And since those years, those countries cannot continue to invest in development. Without security, no development. Without peace, no development. And this is why I used to tell to people that China is an example, not only in terms of security, but in terms of sharing security to all people.
Professor Wang Dong, about China's role there, just now we heard a kind of impression that, well, China is touting this idea of Global South, so one day we replace the position of the United States. Hey, Global South, come with me. Is that what China is trying to do?
Well, thank you again.
Tough questions all to you.
Yes, always with me. You know, my short answer to that question is really that this is really not part of China's vision about how the prospect of the global order will evolve. You know, and of course to...
what is China's vision for the future security architecture?
Right. In terms of security architecture, in terms of the evolution of global order, I think China definitely envisioned for a world order that is fair and just, that is more equitable, that is more inclusive than the current one to a great extent is still a West-centric or dominated by the Western powers. So the interests and priorities of the global South countries needs to be really represented in this system. Our leader, President Xi, said many times, the world is sort of broad enough for both China and the United States to develop, you know, jointly together and also pursue prosperity and make joint contribution to the world peace and prosperity. So I think we need to, you know, really not to take a sort of zero sum. I would regard this as a kind of rhetorical trap. We should be careful about, and also we hear a lot from the West. But I would definitely say no. I think China's vision is not to replace the American hegemony and to become another hegemony and to be hated by most in the world. Why? Well, there's no point of doing that.
Larissa, is there something new for you? You were watching with great interest. But from your perspective, what would you like to comment to any of the points said so far? And in terms of security, through the development, through the building of new energy projects, is that also a kind of security that Global South countries can do together? Because energy security is security. Look at Nord Stream 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the international speakers also talked about the importance of work and job creation, and what she's talking about is the importance of economic development and prosperity for people to feel at peace, right? So I think this is one common issue that we see among developing economies, is the need for further development, economic development in society, so that people can actually feel their lives are advancing. And cooperation is all about that. And this is the idea that I think think tanks can engage on, because think tanks are there to promote dialogue and the exchange of ideas on different topics. So we have the freedom to debate what makes sense or not. When we talk about development, I think we're mostly talking about economic development and having people feel prosperous with the life that they're living at the moment, but also giving young people a chance to look ahead to the future and feel that their future will and can be prosperous, and that can be achieved to further collaboration, foreign direct investment, green financing, and all the instruments that we have at hand and that we should use for this purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. Professor Kolodko, you have anything to react to? Because pretty much all of that was in reaction to your comment.
First things first, China will never accept, I don't accept either, hegemony of the United States. The United States have to understand that it is the end of hegemony, and it is the beginning or continuation of the multipolar world. Second, we still have G7. And then the West has learned the lesson. G7 is not as powerful as it used to be 20 or 50 years ago. So we have established, we, the people of the world, what is called G24, where we have G7 and many countries which belong to the so-called Global South. But it is still not everybody. Now there is the concept which is academic, intellectual, political, ideological concept of Global South, which is very heterogeneous. And yes, China aspires to be the leader of the Global South. But there is the other country which aspires to be the leader of the Global South.
So what can China share as part of the Chinese experience? Because we don't want the whole world to be Chinese. What can China share with the world? Because we managed something.
So,
right?
you know,
So how do we do it? This is what China wants to share,
learn from Chinese experience that you have to take care of education. You have to invest in infrastructure, not in military strength. Absolutely. And you have to follow and to make institutions good for technological progress. Otherwise, you are not able to develop your country wherever it is. So some countries, they still believe in Nigeria that then they can be another Great Britain, or they will make out of Chad another France. Never. It is impossible. And it's also not impossible to follow the Chinese successful road, say in Nigeria or in Brazil, but how to invest in human capital, how to build infrastructure, how to lead technology, etc. That is what the other countries can learn from China, and China can help them, not because of ideological reasons, but because of pragmatism. What we do need in each and every country of so-called Global South is pragmatism. In my theory, I call it new pragmatism. It can be a little bit with Chinese characteristics, but not too much. What we can learn from you, how to combine the power of invisible hand of market with the power of visible hand of government. I was 4 times deputy prime minister. Sometimes the power of the visible hand of government is too visible in China, but how to combine them in a successful way. This is the lesson from China's experience from the so-called Global South.
I'm sorry to rush you. Very good point, very good point. And I appreciate your straightforwardness. We need to have honest discussion, open discussion, even criticism. But I do want to say, is it a one-way street for China? When China says, you know, let's cooperate, is it you learn from me? I don't think that is the case. Who would,
I would like to say that even when we read in the history, China never imposed its culture. China never colonized a country. And since the creation of different organizations, specifically China-Africa, the Forum of China-Africa Cooperation. China never says that we want you to do that, or the cooperation between African country and the Western country is, you don't do that, we will not give you this.
Oh, you have to do this before I give you something.
They impose a culture, they impose a system. They want everybody to do like they want. One of the last, how to say, example I like, because I like to share example. The President of the Republic of, I can say, United States, he visited Senegal. He asked to the President of Senegal to impose the marriage between the same sex. You know what the President said? He said, sorry, that's not a part of my culture. I cannot impose that to my people. That is the independence. And China never imposed the culture to a country.
Anna,
I think when you talk about China, I think China being part of the Global South, what is very interesting and what is...
And then it's questions.
Yeah, from what I can sense, I've studied Global South and South-South cooperation in many ways. But I think what is China's role at the moment when you talk about the Global South and developing countries, it serves like an inspiration to developing countries, to the least developed countries. Why? Precisely because if you really look at China, it developed its economy and everything is indigenous. You know, it capitalizes on its own domestic strength as a country, and it's growth and opening up. There's such a thing in China that it's modernization, opening up and reforms. If you really study the economic development of China 40 years ago until now, it's based on its own historical background. It's based on its comparative advantage. And it is based on the resilience and the hard working of the Chinese people. This is actually the foundation why China is China today. The second economy, the largest, and even number one, I think, in many respects. I think that is an inspiration to the whole Global South, to the Global South countries, precisely because this is the kind of things that we need to adopt, and I think not necessarily copy China in everything that it does, but I think we need to learn how to develop our own economy based on our own resources, based on our historical underpinnings, and then pursue our own development, that what we think is right for us, and define the destiny of our own countries based on what we think is right, but not based on the dictates of other countries. Thank you.
Thank you. Larissa.
I think going back to your point about how important it is for the world to be a multipolar world, developing countries benefit from multipolarity, but developing countries benefit from the fact that you can articulate partnerships with different countries, that some of them will be able to help you in one type of issues and others will be able to work on you on other topics. And this is very good and healthy for an economy like Brazil. So I think this is maybe the most important aspect of Brazilian society, is the feeling that a multipolar world is healthy, it's possible, and it's something that we should aim for.
Thank you. Professor Wang Dong?
I think the Chinese experiences really tells us is that we sort of, my understanding, that we breaks this myth there's only one pathway to a modernization.
Which is
That's
Western.
Right. If you're not following that, if you're not following the Washington Consensus, or now they call it the New Washington Consensus, you are sort of, you're outdated. You are not part of this. You are impossible to achieve modernization whatsoever. We successfully, sort of, broken that myth, and we demonstrate that as a sort of, developing country, poor country, like China, as long as we do the right thing, right? Investment in education, human capital, technology, and also we just discussed the right balance between the efficient, invisible hand of the market and also the efficiency of the government regulation, right? So to combine all those, have all those things together, you create this, we found this Chinese pathway to modernization. And we believe Global South, modernization really is a collective and enterprise. So it's a collective enterprise with this joint endeavor toward the pursuit of modernization. We'll be partner with other members of the Global South, and we firmly believe that more and more Global South countries along the way together, we can achieve modernization.
Thank you so much. We have to leave it there. Another big round of applause to our guests here. Grzegorz Kolodko, Wang Dong, Larissa Volholtz, Ana Rosalia Malindo Gui, Yuro Diallo, and thank you once again. So we're open the floor for questions. Microphone, please. Yeah, go ahead, please.
I'm Guilherme Paladino. I'm from Brazil. First things first, I'm very happy to see a Brazilian woman here. It's an honor to my country. And I would like to ask Larissa and Mr. Wang Dong, if possible, because Larissa stated very well how China is important to Brazil, economically, mostly economically, but in all areas. And at an event on China-Brazil cooperation held yesterday in Brazil with key Brazilian authorities, they stated that Brazil needs to deepen this trade relationship and make it more strategic, advancing in different areas and products. It also was mentioned that we are complementary in many areas and we can do much for world peace, food security, energy transition, and the fight against the climate crisis. Most specifically, Brazil has expressed interest in enhancing partnerships in areas such as artificial intelligence, digital transition, and infrastructure, including railways, subways, and urban trains with technology transfer.
Question.
With all this in mind, it is clear that China is of great interest in Brazil, but I would like to hear a few words on how China views Brazil and which specific areas China is most interested in deepening its relations with my country. Thank you.
China sees Brazil as a country that is very valuable to its a group of relationships, because Brazil is one of the very few large countries that is able to have an independent foreign policy. Brazil is able to have a stance on different international fora that does not necessarily follow only one player or another player, and that is very respected and valuable for China. China and Brazil have signed a strategic partnership agreement a few years ago, and I believe that China will continue to have Brazil as one of its key partners in the developing world, not only thinking about Latin America.
Professor Wang.
There are at least a couple of things I think Brazil and China we can do together. And by the way, I completely agree with you. I think, Brazil, China, regard Brazil as one of the most important partners of China in BRI and many other joint efforts. So I think one thing we can do together, Brazil and China, really is to make BRICS, this grouping, more effective. And there's a lot of agendas, a lot of challenges facing us. I think Brazil and including a lot of regional, conflicts and many others, global challenges. I think going beyond the bilateral, development, trade, and investment, etc. And you mentioned AI and digital infrastructure. Those are definitely the things we should be pursuing. But also going beyond that, I think Brazil and China, we should, first and foremost, we should work together to make BRICS more effective in terms of a platform, really representing the voices, the interests, and the priorities of Global South countries. And I think if we are able to do that, I think we together, collectively, I think we will be together with the Global South, I think we will be able to make the world we are living now more peaceful, more prosperous, and more stable.
Thank you. And with that, we wrap up the panel discussion. Please return to your seats. Thank you very much. I would also like to extend our sincere gratitude to all the Global South think tanks that have participated in this forum, whose contributions have greatly enriched our discussions today. As has been mentioned in the discussion, think tank cooperation play a very important part in Global South cooperation. It's an uphill battle, as we can see today, but I believe we will prevail as we're doing the right thing. And exactly to that end, we are launching an initiative together with our counterparts abroad, and here's the moment we've all been waiting for, the unveiling of the initiative of the Global South think tanks to jointly build a prosperous world with a shared future. Please allow me the honor to read it for you. On the occasion of the 2024 BRICS Summit, the International Department of the Central Committee of the CPC and China Media Group, with some 40 think tanks from Global South countries, have reached a broad consensus and issued the following initiative. First, promote modernization in Global South countries. Think tanks in Global South countries should embrace the trend of open development and provide intellectual support to countries in search of modernization paths suited to their national realities. By expanding the breadth and depth of South-South cooperation, we aim to help countries jointly pursue development and prosperity and security and share the benefits of development. Second, be true advocates of multilateralism. We firmly uphold mutual respect between nations, non-interference, independence, and self-determination in international relations. We advocate safeguarding the fundamental principles of international relations, uphold fairness and justice, and aim to create a more just and reasonable international order while advancing towards a multipolar world. Third, build a community with a shared future for mankind. We're committed to a global governance model based on consultation, joint efforts, and shared benefits. Upholding the principles of equality, mutual learning, dialogue, and inclusiveness, we will work to amplify the voice of the Global South. Together, we'll strive to build a community with a shared future of peace, security, prosperity, and progress for mankind. October 16th, 2024. That's our initiative. That's a solemn pledge, a call for action and a vision, and I personally pledge we will walk the walk. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we'll come to the end of the Global South Think Tanks Forum, brought to you by the International Department of the CPC Central Committee and China Media Group, and organized by CGTN, China Global Television Network. It's been a great pleasure hosting you. Thank you very much.